We just found out that a 17th century English folklore named John Aubrey knew where April Fool's Day came from all along. He just never told anyone.
He wrote it down, he just didn't explain it. And that's what we're here for. We have your back.
Today we're taking on April Fool's Day.
So where did it actually come from?
Nobody knows for sure. Alan Dundes said it plainly in a 1988 essay in the Journal of Enophore. He said, more than 100 years of scholarship has unfortunately added very little to our knowledge and understanding of this curious custom.
Folklorist Moira Smith puts it simply, spring fools us. The weather is unpredictable, winter feels over, and then it isn't. Spring is a time of year that fools us anyway, she said, and Dundes agrees. The reversal of time, of seasons, on April 1st is appropriately marked by a reversal from wisdom to April's foolishness.
The French term
Poisson d'avril,
or April fish, shows up in a poem in 1508. In France, a gullible person gets a paper fish pinned to their back. The fish is young, easy to catch. That's the joke.
The first English language documentation is 1686, and it comes from John Aubrey.
Author Kelsey Jackson Williams, whose book The Antiquary was published by Oxford University Press in 2016, and it describes Aubrey as one of those people Francis Bacon called industrious persons who by exact and scrupulous diligence save and recover something from the deluge of time.
He wasn't building arguments, he was writing things down before they disappeared. He justified his own method once, writing that something that might seem too trivial now would hereafter not be slighted but pass for antiquity.
Wilm calls it anticipatory antiquarianism. Write that down, someone will need it later.
And what Aubrey wrote was this: Fool's Holy Day, we observe it on the 1st of April, and so it is kept in Germany everywhere.
That's it. No origin story, no explanation, just we do this and so does Germany. According to Alex Bose of the April Fool Archive, Aubrey seems to have regarded it as primarily a German custom, which means he didn't even think of it as English, but that's just an interpretation.
But wait, there's an archive of April Fools?
Oh yeah, we should go
It's
check
like
that out.
The Hall of Fame of April Fool's jokes?
I don't know. I
That's
haven't
amazing.
looked. I haven't looked.
We'll check that out later, and we recommend you check it out too. And his manuscript was never published in his lifetime. It sat in the British Library for nearly 200 years before the Folklore Society published it in 1881. The documentation existed. Nobody could formally cite it until long after Aubrey was gone.
Now let's look at America. The earliest known American reference is a 1796 Connecticut handbill identified by folklorist Stephen Winnick for the Library of Congress.
Researcher Tom Kelleher at Old Sturbridge Village went through 37 New England diaries from the late 1780s through the 1850s and found 3 mentions of the holiday across 2 diaries.
The first is Reverend William Bentley of Salem, Massachusetts. Yes, that's Salem, our Salem. He noted in 1802, no fool day this in the public mind. No pranks recorded, he just marked it.
Oh, pranks? I want to know what pranks they would do in 1802.
We don't get to know.
Do they just tell you they're repainting the historic building, or the city of Salem is annexing all its historic territory?
Those are the rumors today.
Bye-bye Danvers. Bye-bye Peabody. So the first documented American prank doesn't occur until 1853. And that's a 19-year-old in Maine named Freeland Howe. Howe, as in Elizabeth Howe, but don't know if he's related or not. Freeland Howe arranged to ring the dinner bell at noon and had his roommate slip April Fool notes under all the boarders' plates. He called it a grand April Fool.
And then there's a letter from 1838, Rebecca Bullard, writing to her brother from her Boston boarding school on April 1st. It describes an entire day of elaborate pranks, fake emergencies, a false prayer bell, a box nailed shut and filled with rags. She writes she had been really afraid to move all day, and she uses the French term
Le poisson d'avril.
A Boston schoolgirl in 1838, knowing the French name for the holiday, the traditions had already merged by then.
3 mentions across 37 diaries doesn't mean the holiday was rare. It means people were too busy playing pranks to write about them.
Let's go back further into territory that's a little more familiar to us. Colonial New England had its own long tradition of pranks, tricks, and deliberate deceptions, and some of them ended very badly.
It's 1682. We're on Great Island in New Hampshire, now Newcastle. A Quaker tavern keeper named George Walton spent several nights being pelted with rocks. This event became known as Lithobolia, the stone-throwing demon. Walton and his guest Richard Chamberlain chose to interpret the physical assault as the work of a supernatural demon rather than acknowledge that the community despised them. And then 1692, the examples get sharper.
At Ingersoll's Tavern in Salem Village, an unnamed afflicted girl faked a spectral attack, claiming to see the specter of Elizabeth Proctor. When William Raymond called her out, she admitted it openly. The afflicted girl said she did it for sport. We must have some sport. They must have some sport.
She said the quiet part out loud. It's what we're all thinking that they might have been doing, but she just comes out and says it's for sport.
In Stamford, Connecticut, a servant named Catherine Branch exhibited strange fits that her master, Daniel Westcott, treated like a parlor trick. He told a neighbor he would bet his cows that he could make her perform on command. After blood was taken from her foot during one episode, she clapped her hands, cried out as if bewitched, and then turned her face into a pillow to laugh.
Turned her face into a pillow to laugh.
A witness saw Sarah Bibber during the trial of Rebecca Nurse secretly pull a pin from her own clothing, stab herself in the leg, and then scream that Nurse's specter had caused the wound.
Caught red-handed in the act in court.
Abigail Hobbs was telling people around Topsfield that she had been out talking to the devil last night. As a joke. When the witch trials escalated, her joke was taken completely seriously. She was arrested, examined, and convicted.
Got to be careful. This prank got someone convicted of witchcraft and condemned, but fortunately reprieved.
That is the line these cases keep walking. Someone is performing, someone is watching, and the audience decides whether it's sport or evidence.
Catherine Branch turned her face into a pillow to laugh. The girl at Ingersoll said they must have some sport. Westcott was betting his cows.
People were still pranking in 1692, at a Boston boarding school in 1838, and ringing a doorbell as a prank in 1853 Maine. I'm sure some bells ring today as pranks.
I'm sure there's some ding-dong ditch going on. What connects all of it? The stone-throwing demon, the girl at Ingersoll's Tavern, Rebecca Bullard's boarding school, John Aubrey's notebook. It's the same thing. Someone performing, someone watching, and a community deciding what to believe.
Aubrey wrote it down in 1686 and never explained it. The Folklore Society published it 200 years later, and here we are.
The origins of April Fool's Day are unknown and probably unknowable. What we know is that people have been pulling pranks, faking demons, turning their faces into pillows to laugh, and slipping notes under dinner plates for a very long time.
And someone wrote it down.